everyone, welcome to Lizzie's Little Library and the Newbery Project. It has taken almost 3 years, but the end is in sight, thank goodness. I've been reading the books in chronological order. Yes, they have gotten better, but I think the 80s and 90s were the peak Newbery season. It almost feels as though authors are now writing just to win the prize, which is not good writing. So, not that it's bad writing, but it's kind of like teaching to the test that, yeah, technically you get the results, but it all just feels really disingenuous. So today's book is the 2011 winner called Moon Over Manifest by Claire Vanderpool. It is the author's first book and was inspired by stories from her grandparents. So I'm already judging this from a bit of a hole because other winners that were based on family stories were passable, but not amazing. So yes, I'm looking at you, Caddy Woodlawn. I had read another book by the same author several years ago. It was called Navigating Early. I liked that one well enough. This is the second consecutive winner whose main character is a 12-year-old girl, and it also has a historic setting. The last book was set in 1979. This book is set in 1936, so another Great Depression book. There have been so many depression set books, and yes, they're all depressing. I honestly have yet to meet a single child who actively seeks out books about this era. So, having said all that, let's get reading. The story begins with our main character named Abilene. She is on a train headed towards Manifest, Kansas. Dad has gotten a railroad job, and she's going to stay with a pastor/saloon owner. I get the impression Dad is a deadbeat. Abilene is hoping to learn about him because he lived in Manifest for a while. She meets a few friends when she goes to school on the very last day, and she reads a letter she found under the floorboards in her bedroom. It's dated 1918, and it's written to Jinx from Ned. The girls convince themselves there is a spy in town, and they go on a spy hunt. When they finish with that game, they find a note that says, "Leave well enough alone," and they get scared. At no point is this book scary. We then jump to a story being told by Miss Sadie, who is the diviner. Her story is set in 1917, and the font changes, which I did like that. So it was super clear if we were in the Depression or if we were in the World War I era. In Miss Sadie's story, we meet Ned and Jinx. They had met at the river and left Poison Ivy at the outhouse of a Klan rally. And this Klan subplot just isn't anything. They don't really ever come back in the story. So the two stories continue. After each of Miss Sadie's stories is a clip from the local newspaper where Miss Harper relays town gossip. Then there was a small ad from the paper. Halfway through, the Ned and Jinx story is more interesting than Abilene's story. She comes across as a neutral narrator whose only purpose is to get Miss Sadie talking. One morning, she mentions to Hattie that no one ever says anything about her dad. And my immediate flag is that Dad is actually Jinx from the story. Both Dad and Jinx had stayed with Shady for some time, and that's really my only clue, but it's a book written for 12-year-olds, so, it's not gonna have the most subtlety of any book ever. The stories limp along. The town brews up some moonshine and mixes it with a healing elixir that the chemistry teacher has made, which is mainly menthol, eucalyptus, and castor oil. And eventually, all the stories connect and personal connections are made. We find out the fate of the majority of the townspeople, and the last few chapters are emotional. They all live happily ever after, I guess. The end. So this book, yes, it had its moments, but I didn't love it. Honestly, I found it to be pretty boring in parts. It also felt like it was about 100 pages too long. There were a lot of historic events included, like the Spanish influenza, Prohibition, bootlegging, riding the rails, World War I in France. It was certainly better to read about these events in book format as opposed to a textbook. And at the same time, it felt like the author had a list of events that she was trying to force fit into the story. I definitely preferred the story of Ned and Jinx as opposed to Abilene's story, although hers did have a sweet ending. And the author also included an explanation of several of the factual events from history, as well as a list of suggested books for further reading. I liked that point too. However, by this point, in the Newbery series, I feel the same about the Depression books as I do the medieval England books. Enough is enough already. There were 4 honor books this year, and the next winner is called Dead End in Norvelt by Jack Gantos. Spoiler alert, not really a spoiler. I've already read that book. I didn't love it. So I'm in a Newbery slump here, and I'm really hoping that the 2013 book will pick up, because the last several, I really liked When You Reach Me. But aside from that, there've just been so many that not good. Prior to that one, When You Reach Me was the 2010 winner. The last one before that I honestly really liked was the 2001 winner, called A Year Down Yonder. So again, everything feels like they're writing to the prize committee, and it's just coming across as both disingenuous and trying too hard. So I am hopeful that the final handful of books will get better, because the early 2000s books have not been really impressive, and Moon Over Manifest is included in that. I do like the cover art, but it needed to be pared down by about 100 pages, and I don't know. I just didn't love it. The connections could have been stronger. It felt like a textbook masquerading as a kid's book. So I really can't recommend it. I think there are better books about the Great Depression. Certainly Bud Not Buddy was better. I'm kind of over the Great Depression books. So go ahead and skip this one. And honestly, I really liked Navigating Early better than this one, the author's other book, which didn't even get an honor. So go figure. I'll never understand the selection committee. I will get Dead End in Norvelt posted for next week. And this was Moon Over Manifest. Thanks for watching. Bye.